Hi, Andrew here, one of the everyday chefs for Fruits and Veggies More Matters. Today's recipe is a shredded kale and Brussels sprout salad. Let's get started. We've got our list of ingredients sitting here. Brussels sprouts, some Parmesan cheese, some sliced almonds, some fresh kale, some sour cherries, a little bit of white wine vinegar, some extra virgin olive oil in the squeeze bottle, and a Ben Reiner mandolin. And so we're going to introduce you to some new equipment today as well. So what we're working with here first is a Brussels sprout, and I've washed these as I did the kale. Regardless of whether it's conventional or organically farmed, it did come out of the ground and it's been packed in boxes. So it's just smart to wash it off. One of my favorite tools in the kitchen is my salad spinner. It's also really great to store a lot of things after you've rinsed them. Normally with a Brussels sprout, I will always peel the outside off. I do the same thing with lettuce or anything that's been growing in the ground. It's just been roughed up and in contact with everything. The grocery store, the farmer's hands, the boxes, you name it. Doesn't always look very pretty. I'm going to leave the root end on in this case because I'm going to use the Ben Reiner. And this is a mandolin that has interchangeable blades. On this one I've got the straight blade, and I have an adjustable knob here, and what it does is it raises up this plastic slide so that I can get the right thickness. If I leave the stem end on, when I go to shred this, I have something to hold on to and acts like a finger guard, because the Ben Reiner does come with a finger guard right here, but it doesn't always grip very well. I'm not going to go all the way down to the nub. It's just not worth it safety-wise. Not going to lose that much product. And then here I'll be able to show you that we get a very nice, thin Brussels sprout shred. Now, Brussels sprouts is one of those vegetables that not a lot of people like. Usually because they've been boiled or steamed and they're mushy and just not very good, to be honest with you. If you roast them, they get a wonderfully nutty, caramelized, smoky flavor to them. And in this case, in raw, they're actually like little baby cabbages, so they work very, very well. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to shred about 10 or 15 Brussels sprouts. This is one of those recipes where you don't really need exact amounts because you can eyeball and see how much you need and just keep going. Okay, so I've gotten through about 10 to 12 Brussels sprouts, and I have them nice and thinly shredded. Now, I have to caution you that if you do them too thick, it doesn't have the same flavor. It becomes a little overpowering. So as thin as you can get them, that's about a 1/16 of an inch. You want these whole pieces intact, and you'll get the outer leaves will be the nice thin shreds. So what we're going to go ahead and put in now is some of our kale. If you remember from one of our earlier massaged kale recipes, on how to de-leave these or take out the veins, I'm going to go ahead and just take the bottom half. Now this works for parsley and all other types of bound greens. I'm going to grab it where it's bound and I'm just going to twist. I'm going to get rid of the stems and stalks. Now what I have is a whole head of usable kale. I'm going to take out the vein or the rib. It's a little chewy, it's kind of bitter, and I want to take the leaves off. It's pretty easy, just tear it straight down. It'll pull right out. Here, I'm not going to actually slice. This is very limited knife work in this. I'm actually going to just tear the kale into bite-sized pieces very quickly. And again, I'm not going to use the whole entire batch of kale. You could. If you wanted to make a very big batch, you could absolutely do that. But again, using recipes, you don't need to always. We just need to eyeball it and say, I just need enough for 3 or 4 people. You can tear enough and you can make that decision. Most of you have been cooking long enough to say, I just don't need that much. And kale will hold for a very, very long time. Alex, one of the other everyday chefs, actually did a very wonderful video on how to save and preserve your greens, which would be a good way to preserve this kale for another couple days where you could go back and make another batch. Now I'm going to continue to tear this kale into bite-sized pieces until I get just enough of a mixture. And that's the key to a recipe. A lot of recipes were made on somebody else's kitchen with a head of kale that you don't know how big it was, or you don't know how big the Brussels sprouts were. And if they say a whole head or 2 pounds, then, you know, maybe it's too much or it's not to your liking. So just taking a look and mixing this up with my hands, I can see that I've got a fair amount of kale. It looks good. It's a good mixture. I'll get a little in each bite. I don't think I need to tear more. But if I was going to feed a family of 4 or 6 and I needed to bulk this up a little bit, then absolutely I could keep tearing some more kale. And then I'm going to move right on to adding the other ingredients. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of sour cherries. You could use cranberries. You could use golden raisins, which would be amazing. I chose sour cherries so that I get a little bit of sweet and tart that's going to contrast with the olive oil and a little bit of the fatness from the richness from the cheese. I'm going to top it with a little bit of almonds. Now, never use all of your ingredients that you're going to put on the inside. Save a little almonds, save a little cherry, save a little cheese, so that when you're done mixing, you can go back through and garnish the top when you're going for your plating presentation. So I've got my Brussels sprout shreds, my kale tears, my slivered almonds, my sour cherries, and I'm going to take some pecorino romano and a grater, and I'm going to grate that right inside. Now, I have here another one of my favorite tools, some baby tongs. I'm going to toss this, get it mixed up really well. And I'm going to take some of my white wine vinegar, and I'm going to drizzle it over, and I'm going to use my tongs back and forth. And what this does is it kind of splatters the white wine vinegar around so it doesn't all end up in one spot. Now, I never use all of anything. I always save a little bit. I adjust. I do one of the most important things any cook or chef can possibly do, and that's taste their food through the process. Is this enough? Do I need more? Is it nice and glossy? Now you're asking, aren't you going to do a vinaigrette? I am, but I'm not going to do the standard emulsification where I add the oil and the vinegar together in a 2-to-1 mixture, which usually 2 parts oil, 1 part vinegar. In this case, I'm actually going to put the acid right on to the greens. I want it to be a little tart, and I want it to be wet. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my squeeze bottle of extra virgin olive oil, and I have a video of how to store this in a speed pour, because I can put this right in the refrigerator, keep it out of the sun, and keep it from going rancid, and actually hold my expensive oils for a really long time. And I'm just going to squeeze a little bit. So this way, with a normal vinaigrette, you get that nice mixture of a balance of fat and vinegar. In this case, because I didn't mix them up together, I'm actually going to get a little bite of extra virgin olive oil, and the next one's going to have a little tartness and sweetness from just pure white wine vinegar, and then that's going to mix together with the cherries, which are kind of sweet and a little tart, and the nuttiness from the cheese. So I've kind of got a deconstructed flavor profile, and that's sort of what I'm looking for here. Now, one of the most important things I can do now is decide, is this dressed enough? So I take a little piece and I taste it. And I decide, you know what? That's a little tartar than I would like it to be. So I'm going to add a little bit more oil. So now that we've got all the pieces in, I like the way it tastes. It has a good flavor profile. I'm going to salt and pepper a little bit of it. And then we're going to actually garnish it. And I'm going to show you how it looks when we're done. Okay, I think I've got it all dressed. I've got it seasoned with salt and pepper. And I'm going to add a pinch of sugar. I want to sweeten it up just a little bit. The cabbages were a little bit bitter, the Brussels sprouts, so I can go back through and taste that and see what the sugar did, sweeten it up just a tiny bit, and take some of the bite away from the white wine vinegar. Perfect. So then how does this go on the plate? Move this so you can see. It stands high and tight, which is beautiful. So you could serve this as a standalone salad. I'm going to set this off to the side. Now this is where you would come back with a little bit of sliced almonds. Beautiful. Cherries for color on the top so that your guests know they're there, because inevitably they always fall down to the bottom. Come back with a little bit of cheese. We've tasted our plate, and there is a shredded kale and Brussels sprout salad.